and come in. Baby, oh, baby, me say rock and come in.
Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Whitney and I'm here to provide you with natural hair content. So today I am going to be talking about moisture, protein, and bond treatments. So we're just going to hop right into it. I'm going to start off with moisture treatments. So you typically use moisture treatments the most out of protein and bond treatments. Protein treatments you might use once a month to every other week, maybe every 2 months, depending on if your hair likes protein or not. But moisture treatments, you typically use them the most because people that have curly hair or coily hair, your hair is usually dry a lot of the time, or your hair lacks moisture, and moisture is what your hair typically needs most of the time. So one way to know whether you need moisture is usually if your hair is damaged, if your hair is dry, if it's brittle, if it's dull. Normally moisture treatments will help with that. You want to look for moisture treatments that usually have humectants in them. So humectants usually help with retaining moisture. They take whatever molecules from the environment and they pull it into your hair strands. So you have natural humectants like honey, glycerin, aloe vera, and those will help with retaining moisture in your hair. So if you're using products with those type of things, usually you'll retain a lot of moisture in your hair. And normally when people use products with honey, aloe vera, or glycerin, a lot of the time their hair really feels soft, it feels moisturized, they get a lot of days out of their wash and goes or their twist outs or whatever styles they're using or doing. So that's one thing that I've personally also noticed with using like products that have honey or aloe vera. Glycerin is a bit on the iffy side because some people's hair like glycerin and then there's other people's hair that just don't like glycerin. And one way to know that your hair doesn't like glycerin is if your hair frizzes up. No matter what you do, no matter what products you put into your hair, if there's an ingredient with glycerin that's close to the top of the list, that means that the quantity of it is high. Most likely, if your hair doesn't like glycerin, your hair is gonna frizz. It doesn't matter what you do. So humectants can also help with protecting your hair from dry weather or wind, also with improving the bounce and the dullness to your hair. So like I said, moisturizing treatments should be something that you're incorporating into your regime at least once a week. For, I would say, maximum you really need is 30 minutes every week to do a moisturizing treatment. Alright, so we're going to move on to protein. So protein is basically what your hair strand is made up of. The majority of your hair strand is made up of protein, which is keratin. And there are different proteins that can be used in your hair, but keratin is the main protein that you will see in your hair strand. So when you're using protein treatments, it's usually, I would say, like once a month to maybe every 2 months. Sometimes depending on your porosity, it can be just even, you don't need protein all that much, or your hair might be sensitive to protein. Normally if you're low porosity, if you have low porosity hair. So people who tend to have high porosity or damaged hair usually will benefit more from protein treatments than somebody who has low porosity hair. Now the reason being is because your cuticles are lifted or your cuticles are damaged, and with protein treatments, the protein is basically just repairing or strengthening your hair, and it's fixing the cuticle, so the most outer layer of your hair strand. So when you're using protein treatments, there are a lot of people who like to use mayo and eggs and concoct these different homemade protein treatments and just slather it onto their hair. Now, there's nothing wrong with them, except you're not getting the full benefit that you would if you were using a protein treatment that might have been bought in the store. So like a protein treatment that has hydrolyzed protein will be able to give you those benefits that you're looking for if you're trying to fix your damaged hair. So like if you have curly hair normally and you've straightened it, you have heat damage, or you have chemical damage, or just color damage, protein treatments may help with repairing the health of your hair. So if you're using homemade protein treatments, because the molecules of the mayo or the eggs that you're using is too big to penetrate into the shaft of your hair strand, so basically your cuticles, you're kind of just slathering it on and it's kind of sitting on top of your hair. So yes, it might seem like it's helping, it might be giving you more shine, but the cuticle is not being penetrated by those molecules. If you're using hydrolyzed protein treatments, then the cuticles are being penetrated by those proteins because the molecules are broken down smaller so that they can get into those cuticles, like the cracks in your cuticles, to repair them. That is really what a protein treatment is. And one way that you'll be able to know if you need a protein treatment is if maybe you have moisture overload. So if you realize that your hair is very mushy, when it's wet, it kind of feels like cotton candy. There's no elasticity. So if you pull a strand, it kind of just takes a really long time to bounce back. You might need to use a protein treatment. And there is such thing as having protein overload. So if you have protein overload, usually your hair is going to be dry, dull, brittle, so it's going to break very easily. It just feels sometimes like hay. Now when you're using a protein treatment, if you're going for a strong protein treatment like the 2-step ApHogee protein treatment, you always want to make sure you're following up with a very moisturizing, maybe if you want to do a deep conditioner after you've done your protein treatment, you can do that. You can also mix them. I wouldn't suggest doing that with the 2-step ApHogee treatment. That really has specific instructions on how to use it. But if you are using ApHogee protein treatments, then I would suggest following up with a really moisturizing leave-in, because those can also leave your hair very dry and brittle and dull after you've used them if you do not apply that moisture back into your hair. So one thing about hydrolyzed protein treatments is that it's kind of like a temporary fix for your hair strands. So it does strengthen your hair, but you always have to continuously include them in your regime. Like I said, once a month is really mostly what you need, unless you have a lot of damage to your hair. If you have a lot of damage, I would say maybe every 2 weeks. So alternate between a moisturizing conditioner and a protein treatment. 1 week you do one, the next week you do the other, until you see that there's a difference in your hair, or until you feel like your hair has more strength. Then you can just go to more so using moisture treatments. Do not keep the protein treatments or your moisture treatments in overnight. I personally feel like after 30 minutes you kind of just got all the benefits that you need from that moisture or protein treatment. I think that if you're going to keep your protein treatments in or your moisture treatments in overnight, maybe rinse them out and then apply a leave-in rather than sleeping with them in your hair. And moving on to bond treatments. So I don't really talk about bond treatments. I've never done a bond treatment, but I do see a lot of people using bond treatments. Now, bond treatment is a treatment that is going to help strengthen the inside of your hair strand. So protein treatments are the most outer layer part of your hair strand that it's strengthening, whereas bond treatments are treating the inside layer, which would be the cortex. So bond treatments are molecules, or bonds I should say, that are so small that they are going to penetrate into the hair strand. They're going to go past the cuticle and they're going to go directly to the cortex. Usually hairstylists will use these bond treatments in their mixes when they're dyeing hair, for example. And bond treatments, I wouldn't say that you need them too often, maybe once every 3 months if you're trying to do that, or if you just don't even have damage, your hair is fine. I don't think using a bond treatment is really going to make any difference. You can use it, it's not like it's going to damage your hair, but I wouldn't suggest using it like as if it's a moisture treatment where you're doing moisture treatments every week. I wouldn't suggest doing bond treatments every week, because like I said, you're strengthening the cortex of your hair, and the cortex is what gives you your strength, your elasticity, the color, the texture. So if you're continuously doing that, like with anything, too much of something is not good. So that includes moisture treatments, protein treatments, and bond treatments. There's also a bond treatment that Curlsmith had released not long ago. I can't remember the name, but I'll put it down somewhere on the screen or in the description box. And if you're interested in doing a bond treatment, you can always use Olaplex or the Curlsmith. Now, I will say that bond treatments seem to be quite expensive. I know for Olaplex number 3, I believe it's like $28 and you only get 3 ounces. So if you're somebody that has a lot of hair, very thick hair, $28 for 3 ounces is not doing much. You might not get half of your head done, and I find that's a lot of money for a bond treatment or just a treatment in general. Whereas Curlsmith, they do have the same type of product, a bond treatment, but you get, I think it's 16 ounces or 8 ounces, if I'm not mistaken. I'll put it somewhere on the screen as well, and it's $1 more than the Olaplex. So just keep that in mind if you're looking for maybe, you know, a bond treatment that you want to try. I do plan eventually trying a bond treatment on my hair just to see if there's any difference, but for right now I've never used a bond treatment. I have been trying to look up information in regards to bond treatments before I actually go through with putting it in my hair. So with any product or any treatment that you're looking to use or try for the first time, I would always suggest doing your research before you just put anything in your hair. You want to make sure you're reading your ingredients list and not just doing whatever you feel like doing. Also, when it comes to treatments like that, you want to make sure that you're following instructions and not just doing what you would normally do if you were applying maybe a moisture treatment in your hair. Moisture treatments are probably the easiest treatments out of all to do. You can find them mostly anywhere. Protein treatments also, you're able to find protein treatments here and there, and like I said, protein treatments usually for just the ones that are store-bought. You can find just simple that are not too strong, and they have the word strengthen in it, repair in it. Let me know down below if you've ever used protein treatments or a bond treatment, and let me know what your results were if you have used the bond treatment. And also like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Later.